The smartest person in the room is often the easiest one to manipulate. Not in spite of their intelligence, because of it. If you have ever watched someone sharp, careful, genuinely hard to fool, end up trapped by a person that everyone else saw through from a mile away, this is the reason why. And it is almost certainly not what you think. Here is the first thing to understand. You do not notice manipulation while it is happening. That is the entire point of it. It never feels like control, it feels like connection. It feels like you have finally met someone who really sees you. And by the time something feels wrong, you are already explaining it away, making excuses, filling in reasons on their behalf. And if you happen to be intelligent, you are very, very good at building reasons. That is what makes it so hard to see. It does not arrive as an enemy. It arrives as the answer to something you are quietly missing. We like to believe that manipulation only happens to other people. The naive ones, the gullible, the desperate. So if you know that you are intelligent, you quietly assume that you are safe. And that assumption is the exact door they walk through. Because researchers studying something called the bias blind spot found something deeply uncomfortable. The higher your cognitive ability, the worse you can actually be at spotting your own bias. You can read everyone else in the room with surgical precision and stay almost completely blind to yourself. So here is the trap, and it is a quiet one. A skilled manipulator does not need to defeat your intelligence, they only need to recruit it. Once you are emotionally invested in them, that brilliant mind of yours stops guarding the door and quietly starts working for them. It builds careful, elegant, convincing reasons why the warning sign was not really a warning sign. The sharper you are, the better the excuses you are able to make. Think about that for a moment. The very thing you trusted to protect you, your own judgment, becomes the instrument they play. There is even a name for failing to think clearly despite a high intelligence. Psychologists call it dysrationalia. It is exactly why brilliant people fall for schemes that look completely obvious from the outside. And the more certain you are that you could never be fooled, the less you ever actually watch for it. I would see it coming. I am too smart for that. That sentence is not armor. It is the blindfold you hand to them yourself. So how does it actually work, step by step? It almost never begins with a large demand. It begins small. Can you do me one little favor? Can you cover for me, just this once? Can we keep this just between us? Each request is easy to grant. Each one would feel almost rude to refuse. But notice what is really being built here. Not the favor itself, the habit. Because once you have said yes a few times, a quiet pressure sets in. The need to stay consistent with the person you have already shown yourself to be. Each small yes makes the next one easier. And by the time the request is finally a big one, you are not really deciding anymore. You are just continuing. Then comes the part that hooks the deepest. And it is not constant cruelty. Constant cruelty would be easy to leave. It is warmth and cold, traded back and forth. You will recognize the rhythm. Days of distance, of feeling like you did something wrong without knowing what. And then a message so warm it seems to erase all of it. And just as you start to relax into it, the warmth vanishes again, with no explanation. So you start performing, working to earn back the person you met at the very beginning. And here is the cruel mechanics underneath it. When a reward arrives unpredictably, your brain releases more of the chemical that drives wanting than if that reward came every single time. It is the exact same mechanism that keeps a person sitting at a slot machine. Researchers who studied abusive relationships found that this back and forth, not steady mistreatment was what most strongly predicted how tightly someone stayed attached. The hot and cold is not the relationship breaking down. For a manipulator, it is the strategy working perfectly. And what happens on the day you finally gather the courage to confront them? If you have ever walked into a conversation knowing that you were wronged and walked out of it somehow apologizing, you have already met this one. The psychologist Jennifer Freyd gave it a name: DARVO. Deny, attack, and reverse victim and offender. Listen to how it actually sounds. You say, "That hurt me." They say, "That never happened. You are remembering it wrong." That is the denial. Then comes, "After everything I have done for you, how dare you bring this up?" That is the attack. And finally, the quiet reversal. "Do you have any idea how much you are hurting me right now?" And just like that, you are comforting the very person who wounded you. Studies found that people on the receiving end of this end up blaming themselves more, not less. That is not your weakness. It is a designed effect. This is why intelligent people do not simply get caught. They stay caught far longer than anyone around them can understand. Your mind keeps generating reasons to stay. You have already invested so much. You can see their potential so clearly. You understand the wound underneath, exactly why they became the way they are. And understanding another person is a real gift. But understanding can quietly turn into the rope you use to tie yourself in place. You are not staying because you are weak. You are staying because you are loyal to a version of them that may only exist inside your own understanding. So what actually protects you? It is not being smarter. You are already smart. That was never the problem. First, look for the pattern, not the single moment. Anyone can have one bad day. Manipulation is a cycle that repeats. If you keep forgiving the exact same thing, that is not an accident. Second, the moment you catch yourself building a long, complicated explanation for someone's simple bad behavior, stop. The effort of the excuse is the warning. Third, separate how you feel from what actually happened. Write the facts down without the feelings attached. Manipulation lives in the gap between the two. And fourth, say it out loud to one person outside of it. Manipulation needs isolation to survive. Daylight is very, very expensive for it. And if you recognized yourself anywhere in this, please hear this part clearly. You are not foolish. You were chosen precisely because you are thoughtful and loyal and willing to understand people that others gave up on a long time ago. Those are not flaws, they are good things that were simply pointed in the wrong direction. The goal here was never to make you colder or harder or suspicious of everyone you meet. It is to let you keep your warmth and stop handing it to people who only studied it so that they could use it against you. If this gave words to something you could always feel but never quite name, that is the entire reason this channel exists. So take a breath. You are already seeing it more clearly than you were 10 minutes ago. And clarity, once it finally arrives, is very, very hard.